Welcome to WYCD Wicket. That stands for What You Can Do. Oh man, good news after good news today. All of it dealing with the darkest of matters, but the good guys seem to be landing some blows. We've got a major development in the Justin Roiland scandal. Adult Swim has announced they are cutting ties with him. He will no longer be involved with the show Rick and Morty. We'll go into detail on that in a moment. Later in the show, Google has had an antitrust suit filed against it by the Department of, announced by Merrick Garland not too long ago, late Tuesday. And then the Abrams tank is going to Ukraine. You can't tell that's the one I'm giddy about. The U.S. has finally signed off on sending Abrams tanks to Ukraine. It at a minimum, the messaging that sends ought to give Russia reason to reconsider continuing the war. The invasion that started, 11 months ago? If it's been going bad, it's about to go a lot worse. So great news across the board. If you have an interest in justice, let's get right to it. Adult Swim announced they are dropping Justin Roiland. In a tweet on Tuesday, let's have a look at it right here. In a tweet Tuesday, the network said, Adult Swim has ended its association with Justin Roiland. Rick and Morty will continue. The talented and dedicated crew are hard at work on Season 7. So right there, you've got some really interesting developments. So if you don't know, Justin Roiland is the co-creator of one of the most popular shows on television, Rick and Morty. It's also come to light that there are allegations rather severe allegations of domestic violence against him. He is living in the state of California. It takes such accusations quite seriously, and it appears that it looks like prosecutors are going ahead with a case. He's out on bail, but it looks like the bad news is cropping for this man because he's off the show. And it gets worse. Let's have a look at this article by Kotaku. The main voice behind Rick and Morty, as in he voices both Rick and Morty. I'm not sure how Adult Swim is going to go about casting the replacements. But if you happen to do a really good Rick or Morty or both impression, now might be the time to dust off the old reel. The main voice behind Rick and Morty won't be returning in Season 7. Adult Swim announced on Tuesday that it would cut ties with series co-creator Justin Roiland, a decision that comes just weeks after news first surfaced that he was facing 2 felony domestic abuse charges from 2020. Adult Swim has ended its association with Justin Roiland, the company said. The Rick and Morty account tweeted, Rick and Morty will continue. We read this earlier. According to The Hollywood Reporter, Roiland's voice roles will be recast, and Dan Harmon will remain the sole creator through Season 10. So they're going on with Season 7. They are planning on going on with Season 8, 9, and 10. We will see. We'll see if the show keeps up its steam. Obviously, I disagree with the man's apparent personal habits, but he was one half of the creative force behind that. We know that he contributed a great deal to the show. Obviously, that does not matter as much as, not doing the things he is alleged to have done. The article continues, Adult Swim did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Roiland could not immediately be contacted for comment. Earlier this month, Roiland made a court appearance in an ongoing criminal case in California where he faces felony domestic abuse charges for battery and false imprisonment. That is very odd to me. I have no idea what circumstances could have brought up the false imprisonment charges. None of them are good. None of them are good. That would be like if you have somebody in an area and you refuse to let them leave. That's false imprisonment. So given that these are domestic-related charges, it bodes poorly. The actor and showrunner has pled not guilty, importantly to clarify, but so far not publicly commented on the allegations. Now, here is an even newer development. Squanch Games. If you're familiar with the game High on Life, it's created a big splash recently. It's a very successful game. Squanch Games was run by Justin Roiland. Squanch Games released a statement revealing that Roiland resigned as CEO last week. The passionate team at Squanch will keep developing games we know our fans will love while continuing to support and improve High on Life, the studio wrote. Really surprising, I suppose not surprising, really severe developments for Roiland. I'm not going to comment on whether or not it's deserved beyond saying I'm glad to see that a major network is choosing to address this head on rather than pretend like it's not happening. If we did not live in a country where the justice one receives or doesn't receive is so dependent on how powerful the person in question is, how rich they are, how influential they are. If we truly had a fair justice system, my opinion would be keep business totally separate. Unfortunately, we do live in a country where if you are the CEO of anything, you are very unlikely to be held accountable for your actions. So I'm glad to see that that Roiland will be facing trial on odds that are closer to even than they would have been, closer to fair than they would have been, were he still financially backed by Adult Swim and Squanch Games. That said, still a wealthy person, still the United States of America. Who knows how it'll go? Watch this space, I suppose. We'll stay on it. Well, in a piece of what appears to be surprising bravery from Merrick Garland, an antitrust suit has been filed against Alphabet, and that's the company that owns Google. It is for Google's practices that Garland says violates the Sherman Antitrust Act. Let's have a look at that press conference from a bit earlier.
Today, the Department of Justice, joined by 8 states, filed a civil antitrust lawsuit in the United States District Court for the Eastern District of Virginia against Google. We alleged that Google has used anti-competitive, exclusionary, and unlawful conduct to eliminate or severely diminish any threat to its dominance over digital advertising technologies. These technologies, which are known as ad tech, automate advertising sales by website publishers to online advertisers. When an internet user opens a web page that has ad space to sell, ad tech tools almost instantly match the website publisher with an advertiser looking to promote its products or services to the website's user.
For once, I have direct professional experience with this. So when that happens, the process goes like this. There is a chunk of the website which is just designated ad space. And any given second, there are companies bidding for that ad space. And they bid on categories as well as websites. So a company can bid on, say, people who are interested in outdoor sports. Google controlling this means they get a piece of every one of those transactions. The amount they get may shock you, but to give you an idea of how profitable this has been for Google, last quarter, they raked in just through this mechanism, $54.5 billion. Just last quarter. Just from this section of their company. We've had an erosion of the enforcement of antitrust laws for a long time. Good news is, when you have enforcement of antitrust laws, it tends to snowball. But the downside is, last quarter, Google made more than the lifetime earnings of every single person, man, woman, and child, populating the average American town. Truly a staggering amount of power this company holds.
This product and process typically involves the use of an automated advertising exchange. This exchange runs a high-speed auction designed to identify the best match between a publisher selling internet ad space and advertisers looking to buy it. As alleged in our complaint, for 15 years, Google has pursued a course of anti-competitive conduct that has allowed it to halt the rise of rival technologies, manipulate auction mechanics to insulate itself from competition, and force advertisers and publishers to use its tools. In so doing, Google has engaged in exclusionary conduct to severely weaken, if not destroy, competition in the ad tech industry. As detailed in our complaint, we allege that Google's anti-competitive conduct extends to three significant elements of the digital ad buying process. First, Google controls the technology used by nearly every major website publisher to offer advertising space for sale.
Before he continues, he's outlining how collectively this control makes it inherently unfair for Google to be operating the way it is. In other words, it's not antitrust if it's just one business excelling way above the rest. But in this case, he is saying the combination of these things, which he'll list the other two in a moment, the combination of these things is cutting out possible competitors from the market altogether. So they control the ad sales.
Second, Google controls the leading tool used by advertisers to buy that advertising space. And third, Google controls the largest ad exchange that matches publishers and advertisers together each time that ad space is sold. As a result of this scheme, website creators earn less and advertisers pay more. That means that fewer publishers are able to offer internet users content without subscriptions, paywalls, or other forms of monetization. Our complaint alleges that Google has violated Section 2 of the Sherman Antitrust Act by monopolizing the market for the technology used by publishers to offer ads on their websites,
Boom.
monopolizing or attempting to monopolize the ad exchange market, and monopolizing the market for the ad network technology that advertisers use to buy digital advertising space.
So that's the bidding I was talking about earlier. I do want to say, Merrick Garland, I have learned to distrust this person. I am very concerned that this announcement, and I will say it's totally side from the rest of the story. I just want to get it in there so I'm on the record. I'm concerned that this announcement is going to be what he attempts to use as cover for another announcement that he is winding down Trump-related investigations without going after an indictment. I don't even know how that would be possible if you were going to still claim that the rule of law was a thing in this country. I just, purely based off his conduct thus far, it's I wouldn't say it's likely. I would say it's something I'm nervous about. That said, 2 years ago, the Justice Department did a similar suit with Google, so not unheard of.
Our complaint also alleges that Google has unlawfully tied its ad exchange and its publisher ad server in violations of Section 1 and 2 of the Sherman Act. And finally, we allege that the United States, as an advertiser, has incurred damages by reason of Google's violations of the antitrust laws.
So the reason he's clarifying that is because that's what gives them standing in court. That's what gives one of the things that gives the U.S. a say in this. There's a similar state-based lawsuit going on with Google in Texas, and one of the reasons this does not interfere with that is because the United States as a whole, the government, which places ads on various websites for various reasons, is theoretically one of those who's affected by Google's practices.
In addition to the declaratory relief, our complaint seeks damages and the divestiture of certain Google ad tech products. It also seeks an injunction preventing Google from continuing to engage in the anti-competitive practices described in the complaint and any other practices with the same purpose and effect as the challenge practices. I am grateful to Assistant Attorney General Jonathan Cantor, Principal Deputy Assistant Attorney General Doha Mekki, and the attorneys and staff at the Antitrust Division for their tireless work on this case. Monopolies threaten the free and fair markets upon which our economy is based. They stifle innovation, they hurt producers and workers, and they increase costs for consumers. Today's complaint is only the latest example of the department's work to challenge antitrust violations that undermine competition and harm the American people. No matter the industry and no matter the company, the Justice Department will vigorously enforce our antitrust laws. We will aggressively protect consumers, safeguard competition, and work to ensure economic fairness and opportunity for all. I will now turn the podium over to Associate Attorney General Vinita Gupta.
Before she goes on, just to give a little context of what the government can do against a company that seems insurmountably large. AT&T in 1982 was broken up into 7 companies because of actions involving antitrust. So Google might seem like a giant, but the American government is gianter, and to see this suit being taken up is encouraging. I left the piece by this assistant attorney. I can't recall her name. I apologize. By this assistant attorney, because I thought she gave some rather interesting insight into the specifics.
I want to reiterate the Attorney General's thanks to the leadership and staff of the Antitrust Division for all their work to advance robust competition and to ensure that the American people have equal opportunity in the marketplace. I'd like to take a few moments to put this complaint into context. At its core, antitrust is about economic justice, and today's landmark action against Google underscores that it is a priority of this Justice Department to fight the abuse of market power. We know that free and fair competition is essential to economic freedom, and we know that anti-competitive conduct threatens innovation, weakens workers' rights, and stifles free expression. When any company, including a big technology company, violates the antitrust laws, our economy and our democracy suffer. Today's complaint is a perfect example of why competition matters. Americans rely on the internet for news and for community. And advertising revenue is essential for publishers to produce and share ideas and writings. But we allege that Google has captured that revenue for its own profits and punished publishers who sought out alternatives. Those actions have weakened the free and open internet and increased advertising costs for businesses and for the United States government, including for our military. Today's complaint is just one example of the department's broader efforts to root out anti-competitive behavior, regardless of how and where it may arise. Just a few months ago, the Antitrust Division scored a critical win for authors by blocking a merger of two major publishing houses, Penguin Random House and Simon & Schuster. The merger would have substantially lessened authors' compensation for their work and diminished opportunities for new authors to tell new stories. That merger was one of 5 that have been blocked or abandoned as a result of the division's recent work. Other abandoned mergers include 2 that would have strained the global supply chain by decreasing competition for shipping materials. And the Penguin Random House case is just one example of the department's efforts to protect workers.
I would love to see them go after Audacity next.
This past summer, we secured an $85 million payment from poultry companies to settle allegations that they fixed workers' wages and benefits.
Okay, I do want to say, the antitrust laws, they have their limitations. One of them, I believe, is that there's a cap on how much you can fine a company. And that cap is $100 million. Remember how much I said Google made last quarter? Last quarter, not even last year. Last quarter, just off their internet ad revenue, $54.5 billion. So, fining the poultry company $85 million. I don't know how big that poultry company was, but if they were in antitrust trouble, I can't decide how I want to say that. If they were in antitrust trouble, odds are they can handle an $85 million fine. In other words, when they brag about how much they fined these companies, I'm not impressed because it's not really an enforcement mechanism. And if the only punishment the company receives is a fine, they'll simply calculate that into the cost of doing business. And Google would look at the maximum fine of $100 million and think, if we're generating better part of $55 billion every quarter with what we're doing, I'll take $100 million lawsuit and paying for another $50 million worth of lawyers to defend ourselves in court every single year, no problem. But Garland did specify earlier they are seeking to take further action, and that to me is exciting. The idea that these companies could be, or these divisions of Google could be broken up into separate companies. Yeah, that seems like a healthy move. And it seems long overdue as well. We're going to keep watching this space. I do have to say, my faith in the American justice system is not strong, but it does have a history of successfully litigating cases against major companies, against corporations that have gotten too big for their britches. So this appears to be good news if you want a free and fair internet. If you don't want Google to be synonymous with every other thing, including this platform that I'm on now, that exists online, this is a good step. This is good progress. I wish Merrick Garland luck and reiterate that it does not get him out of prosecuting Trump. Well, we've been talking about Ukraine quite a bit with very good reason. Russia's invasion of Ukraine, starting back in 2014, when they annexed Crimea, which is not culturally, but geographically, essentially Ukraine's Florida. I say not culturally because, while it is very much a part of Ukraine, it doesn't have the same problems we currently have with, say, Ron DeSantis. What it does have the unfortunate reality of being is exposed to Russia. Russia swarmed in, and the world didn't respond like we should have. We got another chance, unfortunately, to show the 21st century that we are not okay with early 20th century expansionism. The world has done an all right job of supporting Ukraine. There have been boycotts against Russia from those who can be bothered to participate, but more importantly, we've been giving Ukraine weapons. U.S. recently upped the ante by giving the Bradley a fighting vehicle, not a tank, even though it looks quite tank-like, to the fight. There was a great deal of talk as to whether or not the U.S. would up the ante further in providing the Abrams tank, one of the best fighting machines on the planet Earth currently. Germany and Poland, rather Poland supplied by Germany, is giving the Leopard tank to Ukraine. That's going to enter the fight soon. Today, it was announced the Abrams tank, given by America. 31 of them, I believe, is going to President Volodymyr Zelensky. Today is his birthday, incidentally. Happy birthday, Zelensky. Here is Joe Biden giving the announcement.
Their courage and the indomitable determination to live free. And through every single step of this horrific war, the American people have been strong and unwavering in their support. And Democrats and Republicans in Congress have stood together. The United States has worked in lockstep with our allies and partners around the world to make sure the Ukrainian people are in the strongest possible position to defend their nation, their families, and against the truly brutal aggression of Russia. I haven't seen the likes of this in a long time. The United States and Europe are fully united. This morning, I had a long conversation with our NATO allies, German Chancellor Scholz, French President Macron, Prime Minister Sunak, and the Italian Prime Minister Meloni, to continue our close coordination and our full support of Ukraine. because you all know I've been saying this for a long time. The expectation on the part of Russia is we're going to break up. We're not going to stay united, but we are fully, thoroughly, totally united. With spring approaching, Ukrainian forces are working to defend the territory they hold and preparing for additional counteroffensives. To liberate their land, they need to be able to counter Russia's evolving tactics and strategy on the battlefield in the very near term. They need to improve their ability to maneuver in open terrain, and they need an enduring capability to deter and defend against Russian aggression over the long term. The Secretary of State and the Secretary of the military behind me they've been deeply involved in this whole effort. Armored capability, as General Austin will tell you, has been critical. And that's why the United States has committed hundreds of armored fighting vehicles to date, including more than 500 as part of the assistance package we announced last Friday.
That would be the Bradley. Interesting fact about the Bradley, even though it is not a tank, it, I believe, got more tank kills because of the TOW missile mounted on it than any other vehicle, any other ground vehicle in the Iraq War. Let me go back on that. Well, shoot, now I can't recall. Anyway, the modern Bradley, if you've heard about the Bradley from past scandals involving its development, is actually quite a good vehicle. However, man, nothing compares to the Abrams. My understanding, which is as an outsider, I will stress, is that this is essentially my understanding, it's essentially the best tank in the world, meaning it's way above anything Russia's got.
And today,
in terms of armor,
I'm
firepower,
that the United States will be sending 31 Abrams tanks to Ukraine, the equivalent of 1 Ukrainian battalion. Secretary Austin has recommended this step because it will enhance the Ukraine's capacity to defend its territory and achieve its strategic objectives. The Abrams tanks are the most capable tanks in the world. They're also extremely complex to operate and maintain. So we're also giving Ukraine the parts and equipment necessary to effectively sustain these tanks on the battlefield.
The M88s.
We'll begin to train the Ukrainian troops on these issues of sustainment, logistics, and maintenance as soon as possible. Delivering these tanks to the field is going to take time. Time that we'll see and we'll use to make sure the Ukrainians are fully prepared to integrate the Abrams tanks into their defenses.
Yeah, I believe what he's talking about there are the support vehicles that are used to help maintain the usage of the Abrams tank. That in and of itself is a major contribution. Really important to note, the Abrams is reliant on jet fuel, which we will likely have to supply, and is probably going to have a steeper learning curve than other tanks out there. That said, the Ukrainians have shown that they can adapt to a whole lot, so I wouldn't put it past them to learn this quickly.
We're also closely coordinated this announcement with our allies. The American contribution will be joined by an additional announcement, including that will be ready, available, and more easily integrated for use in the battlefield in the coming weeks and months from other countries. I'm grateful to Chancellor Scholz for providing German Leopard 2 tanks and will lead an effort to organize a European contribution of 2 tank battalions for Ukraine. I want to thank the Chancellor for his leadership and his steadfast commitment to our collective efforts to support Ukraine.
Let me just be clear about the tenacity of the Ukrainian people. They were fighting a fresh Russia with the guns they could scrounge up within their own country at first. They held off a fresh Russia with darn near civilian arms. The fight was helped massively because civilian arms and small arms really are, I'm using terms that that are more video game than military. Let me speak more clearly. The arms they were using at first were not capable of taking on tanks. One of the major additions to their armaments that the U.S. supplied was the Javelin missile. Helped a great deal, but this is still guys on foot fighting armored vehicles. As this sadism cranked on and on, Ukraine's ability to survive put us all to shame. Ukraine has to be commended as well for fighting this war intelligently, including on the digital front. So much is spoken about the war in Ukraine, the invasion of Ukraine, because we, the internet, have been given things to talk about. Footage is constantly coming out of that country. There are Ukrainians going on podcasts, just talking about what they've experienced. That's a smart way to fight. And we deserved to be put to shame for dragging our feet in helping every way we could. That said, I imagine there's all kinds of political considerations. They talk a little bit about the rollout of the Abrams, and they talk about it being a months-long process. I even have suspicion about that. If we had to get tanks to a country on the other side of the world for our use, I have a feeling they would be there tomorrow. But granted, there's logistics to consider and yada, yada, yada. My only point is that we have to be made to help through shame and pressure from our allies. And it looks like that combination has worked. So as much preamble as I'm putting on that, congratulations to Joe Biden. I mean it. I don't congratulate him for much. He's earned it. The right move, in my humble opinion, as a human being that doesn't want to see Ukrainians killed for no damn reason.
Germany has really stepped up. The Chancellor's been a strong, strong voice for unity, a close friend, and for the level of effort we're going to continue. Supporting Ukraine's ability to fight off Russian aggression to defend its sovereignty and territorial integrity is a worldwide commitment. Not just it's a worldwide commitment. Last week, in Germany, Secretary Austin convened the Ukraine Defense Contact Group for the 8th time. This group is made up of some 50 nations, each making significant contributions of their own to Ukraine's integrity. Each fully committed to making Ukraine remain strong and independent and able to defend itself against Russian threats and violence. I want to thank every member of that coalition for continuing to step up. The UK, the United Kingdom, recently announced that it's donating Challenger 2 tanks to Ukraine.
Here we go. Let's total it up. U.S. sending Bradleys with TOW missiles on them. Germany/Poland. That's because Poland has the tanks, but they got them from Germany, so Germany has to sign off on them. The Leopard tanks going. Now we just found out, let's go back slightly.
The UK, the United Kingdom, recently announced that it's donating Challenger 2 tanks to Ukraine.
Challenger 2
France
from the
is
UK.
contributing AMX-10s, armored fighting vehicles, in addition to the
Baby Bradley, AMX-10s.
Leopard tanks that Germany, like the United States, Germany is also sending a Patriot missile battery. The Netherlands
Patriot missiles, good God.
is donating a Patriot missile and launchers. France, Canada, the UK, Slovakia, Norway, and others have all donated critical air defense systems to help secure Ukrainian skies and save the lives of innocent civilians
Badly needed.
who are literally the
Not as bad as planes.
target of
better than
Russia's
nothing.
aggression. Poland is sending armored vehicles. Sweden is donating infantry fighting vehicles. Italy is giving artillery. Denmark and Estonia are sending howitzers. Latvia is providing more Stinger missiles. Lithuania is providing anti-aircraft guns. And Finland recently announced its largest package of security assistance to date. You may remember I was asked a while ago what I think was going to happen. And I said, I let Putin know. He thought that he's going to end up with the Finlandization of Europe, where he's got the NATOization of Finland.
So remember, one of the reasons Putin had for starting this war was that he was uncomfortable with Ukraine's closeness with the West and with the NATO countries. He has, instead of separating Ukraine from the NATO alliance, he has gotten more countries than I can fit on my little piggies to donate all kinds of death machines to fight off his henchmen. And the moment the war ends, he has virtually guaranteed that Ukraine is joining NATO. They'll be welcomed with open arms. They are the heroes of the 21st century thus far. Y-31 tanks, that's apparently because that is how Ukraine divides up its fighting forces, whereas I believe America runs tanks in groups of 50. The sum total, though, means that Ukraine is going to go into the spring heavily armed in comparison to how it went into the winter. Why is that important? The spring is when common reasoning suggests that Russia will try another major offensive. We're bracing for that. It will be met with hellfire. Good. The long rollout of the Abrams, I think I heard like September might be the when they're actually fielded. It could be much earlier. There was a ton going on at the second press conference, which I have linked in the description, and we'll do a further video on at a later date. But the long rollout is not such a concern to me, because there is also the psychological game being played as well. If you are Russia, if you're a Russian soldier, and certainly if you're a Russian commander looking at the butcher's bill at the end of the day, and you're fighting the Leopards, and you're fighting the Howitzers, and you're fighting the Bradleys, and you look at that, and you know that on the horizon, an even bigger slugger is about to enter the fight. Your recommendations up the chain are probably going to be affected by that. In addition, it is a war. Some of this stuff being sent is going to be destroyed. And to know that it will be replaced in the lines by bigger, badder machines is heartening. If you're on the side of the good guys. If you're with Russia, you should be scared, and that makes me glad. All around, a fantastic news day for those that care about justice. In the VOD, I'm going to make sure there is links to aid organizations for Ukraine. It has been a cold winter for them because the lights have been out for much of the country. You can help, and I will provide the links for you to do so easily. If you enjoyed this stream, I do hope that you'll give it a like. Consider subscribing. This has been WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. I've been your old pal Jake. I'll see you next time.
Oh, no, no, oh, no, no.